Intercultural Speech for Fundamentals of Speech class. I'm going to be talking about my experience when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan when I was in the Marine Corps. First, I would like to introduce my audience. Thank you all for being here tonight. So, my experience when I was stationed in Japan, some of the main differences that I found as far as how the society works and some of their traditions and whatnot was the difference between mainland Japan and the island of Okinawa. It seemed as though the mainland was more modernized, bigger, cities, kind of more, I guess, not necessarily modernized, but westernized. A lot of the same stuff that we have over here in America. Whereas Okinawa was kind of more traditional. Going into a store, you would hear traditional Japanese music. Where, if you went to a club on mainland, you might hear rap, or hip hop and rap were huge in Japan, which I was very surprised at. The food, going into a store, hearing the traditional music, the food was delicious over there. A lot of course, rice, noodles, seafood, stuff like that. What I noticed too was the portions were smaller than we were used to. I'm kind of a big eater, so their portions were a little bit smaller for me. And the food in general was a little more healthy than, I guess, the typical American diet. And it always seemed that going along with the food thing, smaller portions and healthier, that there were really no heavy people over there, which is a little bit in contrast with what we have over here. Everybody seemed to be in pretty good shape as far as their diets, and they were also very active. People were always doing something, whether they were at work or outside doing some sort of activity. Everyone it seemed like the whole community was active doing something, and families were always doing something together. It seemed as though the families themselves and the communities were very intertwined. Now, as far as Okinawa being more traditional, you had some carryover, of course, from having the military base there, but a lot of it was still pretty old-fashioned type stuff, traditional. The people over there in general were very polite. I would say they're very humble. They always seemed to work very hard, but they weren't worried about doing something as fast as possible, more worried about doing something as well as they possibly could. So I think that's kind of a difference. It seems like over here people kind of want to do what it takes to get something done, and quality sometimes might take a back burner. So that was another kind of difference in the culture. They also, as far as, like I said, they worked hard. They were, very honest people, and they always kind of did like the best job that they could. Even on the bases, there was a lot of course, Japanese influence. There was mama-sans, they called them. They were older Japanese women. They would clean up, and they would also actually press your uniforms and wash them if you wanted to. You could pay the lady, and she would take care of your laundry for you, which was kind of nice. So it was, you know, the influence was all over the place, and we went off base quite frequently, just doing regular things for us as far as, you know, going maybe playing pool somewhere, just going out and kind of seeing the town, seeing how everybody, you know, what was going on basically. We would, you know, we would go out and see how they, you know, how they were doing things, trying to talk to the people out there, learning their language was probably one of the biggest challenges that I had. And as far as the language barrier, it wasn't that big of a deal because I think we, as humans, communicate more without any verbal communication at all. So that, I mean, that was some of the differences that I saw. And again, there was a lot of stuff that was very similar to what we have here in America. So that was my experience in Japan. Thank you.